who poured so much into us. Because my mother and father, as I would often share, would have to get up so early in the morning and go off to work, they would load us up in the car and take us over to my grandmama's house where we would sleep just a little bit longer. And my grandmother would often have a ritual. It was a two-step ritual. The first phase of that is that she'd grab her bottle of olive oil, sometimes cooking oil, whatever the shiniest oil was that she can get her hands on. And she would build a cross across my forehead. It was her way of sending us out into the day with a blessing that no harm would come our way. And then she would have this refrain where she would say, boy, go to school, mind your teachers, get your lesson, and one day bring that education home. She would say, bring it home for your little brother and your little sister who don't know what it is yet. Bring it home. Bring it home for that little boy down the street that you play with. God knows where he's going to end up. Bring it home. She said, bring it home for your mama and for your daddy who get out there every single day.
Mayor Andrew Gillum with a concession speech in Florida. Ron Desantis is the governor-elect of the state of Florida, a significant win for Republicans there.
11 o'clock on the East Coast, and polls are now closed in 49 of the 50 states, as well as 434 of the 435 congressional districts across this nation. Of the 5 states where polls have just closed, California has, of course, the most elections, including 2 of very big national interest.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now project that California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, will defeat Republican John Cox in the race to succeed term-limited Democratic incumbent Governor Jerry Brown.
Fox can also project that California Senator Dianne Feinstein will defeat Senator Kevin DeLeon, a fellow Democrat who had placed second to Feinstein in the state's nonpartisan jungle primary back in June. Feinstein, as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, came under fire in September, as you all remember, for the handling of Brett Kavanaugh's Senate court nomination hearings. Another Democrat on that committee, Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono, will also win re-election tonight, defeating Republican challenger Ron Curtis, according to the Fox News Decision Desk. Let's go to Washington State now, where incumbent Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell will win a 4th term by defeating Republican Susan Hutchinson there. And the Fox News Decision Desk can now project that Idaho Lieutenant Governor Brad Little, a Republican, will defeat Democrat Paulette Jordan in the race to succeed retiring GOP Governor Butch Otter. Fox can also now project that Hawaii Governor David Ige, a Democrat, will win a second term by defeating Republican Andrea Tupola. And in the Oregon gubernatorial race, it's too early to say whether incumbent Democratic Governor Kate Brown will stave off a challenge from Republican Newt Buehler, a state lawmaker. But as you look at the balance of power tonight, we've made the 2 biggest calls already. The U.S. House of Representatives, we've projected, will go to Democrats' control, and the Senate will go to the Republicans. They will control. We just don't know yet, Martha, how many. It's possible that +2 could get up to +4 before the end of the night. Missouri, and we wait for Florida, which could potentially put it there, but we'll see where it goes. Bill Hemmer has some more for us up there, up in the big terrace.
You guys have 30 minutes because there is it possible?
Take it off.
I mean, Brett and Martha, the amount of information that has come in over the past 60 minutes is really phenomenal. And let me just wind this thing up and let's see how far we can go, okay? What races have we not called so far? This is Missouri, Josh Hawley and Claire Mccaskill, about a 10-point difference right now. You see all that red? That's all Republican. You see the blue specks there? That's Kansas City. That's Columbia, where the president was the other day. And this is St. Louis and East St. Louis over here. A lot of votes out there in St. Louis have not yet come in, so can't yet make a call. But it was Thursday of this past week where the president went to, well, this is Boone County in the central part of the state. And you ask yourself, why would you go there? You know, 2 years ago, Boone County was as blue as you can get, Missouri. But you see all these rural counties. Watch these numbers for Trump go up. You see 72, 73. You see the numbers change, 76, 71.9%. Other one down here. He was driving up that vote in Missouri, and we'll see whether or not as more of these rural counties come in as to whether or not that was a winning strategy. Right now, it looks like it. in the Show Me State. So we'll watch that for a little bit more. I know you were talking a moment ago about Georgia. Let's pop down here and see what's going on with this governor's race with Stacey Abrams. You mentioned Fulton County, and you also talked about DeKalb and Gwinnett. Let's go in there a second right here. Brian, come with me here. This is Fulton County right in the middle. You see where the hesitation is? You've only got 50% of the vote in so far in Fulton County. We can pop over here to the east of DeKalb County, where you're almost full at 92%. Gwinnett County, a lot of votes in Gwinnett. You're about 82%, so that gives us a little bit of pause here before we call that governor's race. You just called Ohio. You called Florida. Georgia is out there. Right now, the Republicans leading. Just think about that. Now, at the beginning of the night, who would have thought, or could you get 3 for 3 in 3 of the most critical governor races, especially in Florida and Ohio, when you're talking about redistricting and setting things up for 2020? You know, all that right now is thrown into this mix to try and understand where the votes have gone tonight and where they have not gone. Now, how do you lose the House? Let's take a look at that as to where Democrats were picking up votes tonight. We'll start in Virginia. You know, Brett, Martha, all of our colleagues live in Washington, so what do they think about? They think about what's familiar to them, right? So here it is in Virginia now. This one, Barbara Comstock could not defend herself against Jennifer Wexton. That went that way, toward blue, toward the Democrats. Down here, Scott Taylor was unable to come back against his Democratic opponent. That was a flip as well. I've been watching this Dave Bratt match all night right here at 99% of the vote with Abigail Spanberger. That's pretty close, right? 1892, the difference, and we'll see in the end whether or not you get some sort of recount or who ultimately wins that. Ohio is fascinating. Republicans hold down here around Cincinnati. They hold here around Columbus, Ohio, and they hold up in the Northeast as well, and I talked about the governor as well. We could go another half hour, so when you get a moment, we'll talk again.
We'll head back up in a bit. We have a big race call to make right here. Fox News can now project that Josh Hawley will defeat incumbent Democrat Claire Mccaskill. After a long-fought battle there, the incumbent Democrat Claire Mccaskill, who voted against Brett Kavanaugh, who tried to warm up to the president's immigration policies, talk about how she supported him. She will go down to defeat against the Missouri Attorney General, an up-and-comer who really, Britt Hume, had a pretty successful race from beginning to end.
He did, and you know, this is a case of a candidate, Claire Mccaskill, who, by virtue of some political skills, had defied the political gravity of her home state. That's now quite a red state, and her defeat is not surprising. But Hawley emerges as a young star on the national scene. I wonder if he'll get more publicity now than Beto O'Rourke did, since he won and O'Rourke lost. I kind of doubt it. But it's something to think about.
Again, this is the punchy part of the program.
Exactly. He's 38 years old, Josh Hawley, and you know, it's been an interesting race to watch. One of the things that he focused on very strongly in recent weeks, he kind of attached to the idea that she is Hillary Clinton. He just kept, you know, sort of visually and in terms of the way that she has voted, everything about her. She's Hillary Clinton. She's Hillary Clinton, and it looks like maybe that message helped him to finish fairly strongly tonight. So a very big win and another pickup for Republicans.
I was going to say, so they have now flipped North Dakota. Heidi Heitkamp has gone down. They flipped Indiana. Joe Donnelly has gone down. And in Missouri, Claire Mccaskill has gone down, and Montana is still out there.
And so is Florida.
So is Florida.
Florida Senate, and I think
well, we haven't. Have we called that?
No, we haven't.
Oh, no,
I think,
but that's a possibility, right?
I think that's a distinct likelihood that Rick Scott's going to win that seat.
We have added to our panel over here Shannon Bream, the anchor of Fox News at Night, who usually anchors this very hour.
That's right, I'm awake.
Juan joins us again, Dana, and Judge Andrew Napolitano. Also with us, Carl Rove is still writing things. Shannon, what do you think?
Well, you know what? We've been looking at a lot of this Fox News voter analysis all night to give us a little bit more of an inside scoop on where people are leaning. So we have been watching this Arizona race all night. It's exceptionally tight. It has been in all the polling. And it's interesting, what we found is that the border there is a huge issue, but people are evenly split, sort of 50-50 on how they feel about building a wall. Those who favor it are obviously tracking in favor of Big Sally. Those who oppose it with Sinema. The one place we see, well, a couple places we see splits. In the veteran households, obviously, Mccaskill is a veteran herself, has a very distinguished career. That's breaking in her favor by 12 points. But when it comes to Hispanic voters, which were a huge factor in Arizona, they're breaking in favor of Sinema by 37 points. So some critical nuggets there. That's going to be a really tight one that we continue to watch.
You know, when you look at the big picture in all of this, Dana, if the Senate, you know, looks to be solidly Republican, we've established that, and the
More
House
solidly,
is Democrat. Yeah. Yep. The president has often bemoaned how slim his margin was there, and you look back to the health care vote, which he lost by 1 vote,
right.
and he's often wanted to expand that so that he could get the leverage that he needed to get real legislation through. But now that he looks like he has that margin, he's lost the House.
Right, and that's why I think that. It is more likely than not that there will be a lot of gridlock between now and then. If you think back to 2007, President George W. Bush at the time pushing through a comprehensive immigration bill. I think that most Republicans and Democrats looking back think we should have just taken that deal at the time because it has festered all this time. But what happened? We were heading into a presidential year and presidential cycle, and Barack Obama was a senator from Illinois. He and Harry Reid cooked up the scheme. They decided not to vote for it. It goes down. That effort failed. And so you have big issues on health care and immigration. Don't know if those go anywhere. I guess infrastructure is a place where they might be able to work together. President Trump still may surprise everyone, though, right? He's a deal maker. He might figure out a way to charm Nancy Pelosi if she ends up being, you know, there are 58 never Pelosi Democrats, so I don't even know if she is going to be the speaker.
Yeah, she may not. But Nancy Pelosi said, there is nothing that I will trade for the wall.
Right.
She said it's an issue of manhood, she said, about President Trump, and there's nothing she would trade for the wall.
And then what does she hand President Trump going into 2020? An issue that he can run on all the way to the
I don't think it's an issue he can run on if, in fact...
He just did.
Well, no, I think, again, Dana, it's in red states.
I know,
and
but the
even
electoral...
in red states, Dana, you'd have the question is, did you deliver on building the wall? Does it make sense? And what you hear from not only Pelosi, but I would say across the Democratic spectrum, is people saying this is a totally politicized issue, much like the caravan manufactured to serve Trump's interest.
Let's just, the caravan is real. It is there.
No. It's not a matter of whether it's real. We've had video of the caravan. But the caravan is not an invasion, to use Trump's language. The caravan is not loaded with diseased people who are gang members who are about to, you know, pour through our border. We are a strong nation capable of stopping that if that was the case. But he has politicized it to the point because that was his message for the base, and it was imitated by Republicans across the board in these midterms.
Right. And we've covered all of that. Judge, your thoughts on this evening?
Well, my thoughts are back to the question that you put to Governor Rendell early in the evening, and that is if the Democrats take the House, which now they apparently have, are they going to investigate or legislate? And though I agree with Governor Rendell, I hope they do legislate and compromise with the president. I don't think that's going to happen. Congressman Gerald Nadler, who is the chair or likely chair of the House Judiciary Committee, stated just a month ago that they want to commence an impeachment investigation. Here's my theory about what the Democratic committee chairs in the House want to do. They want to run shadow investigations. They want to shadow the charge that the president is violating the Emoluments Clause because they can expose what cannot be exposed in litigation. They want to shadow the investigation that Bob Mueller is conducting because they can expose what Special Counsel Mueller has to keep secret. And I think that some of the more radical leftist members of the House on the Democratic side are going to become committee chairs. You've been through the names already. Can you imagine what will happen if Jerry Nadler starts an investigation to impeach Justice Kavanaugh, as he said he was going to start, as well as the president?
You know, the other issue here is campaigning. You had former President Obama campaigning for Joe Donnelly, Richard Cordray, Andrew Gillum, and Stacey Abrams. We don't know what's going to happen in that Georgia governor's race, Carl, but the ability of the former president to get those candidates across the finish line didn't seem to materialize.
It didn't. And what's really interesting to me is that this is almost unprecedented. You have to go back to Herbert Hoover in 1936, going out on the campaign trail, holding rallies on behalf of Alf Landon to find a former president who has been as politically engaged as this one has been. You know, President Clinton didn't go out on the campaign trail in the midterm of 2002 against President Bush. He actually made, I think, 1 or 2 speeches in 2004 at the convention, but that was it. And not only has it been an active campaign by President Obama, the rhetoric has been harsh, at points saying that that the entire Republican campaign is the efforts of the privileged and the powerful who feel that they're in danger of losing their control. And I mean, the language has been over the top, and apparently, thus far tonight, not particularly effective.
I was going to say something about the Senate. Not only will President Trump have an increased majority in the Senate, but the Republicans in that increased majority are going to be much more on his team. When you look at who's gone from the Senate now, Jeff Flake is gone. Bob Corker is gone. Tragically, John McCain is gone. And in the case of McCain, he's replaced by Kyle. Corker is replaced by Marsha Blackburn. If Flake, if McSally wins in Arizona, will replace Flake, it's going to be, he's not going to have as many problems with freelancers.
It'll be a Trumpier Senate than
it'll be a much Trumpier Senate. It's going to be a much Trumpier Republican Party in Congress.
That's what I was trying to say before. I think that we are losing the moderates in the Republican Party, even as we talk about the Larry Hogans and the Charlie Bakers and the like. I don't really think they have a place in the National Party. The National Party is the party of Donald Trump. And he can go into the red states and he can make the case, and people will close their eyes to what absolutely antagonizes people in blue America in terms of the kind of bullying, the kind of rhetoric we've seen. I was very curious to hear from Senator Graham the admission that, you know, with the suburban white educated women, we have a problem. And it may be a matter of tone, the senator said. But remember, the senator's Republican. To Democrats, there's no, it's not just a flaw, it's not just a quirk to be overlooked. It seems as if that is central to who Donald Trump is and how he excites a base that people feel, my God, we are in now for 2 years as we approach 2020 of absolute fireworks.
Well, the president would like to weigh in on that, Juan, and he has just tweeted, tremendous success tonight. Thank you to all. President Donald Trump about this race. Maybe he was listening to you.
No,
he wanted to put it.
Well, Mr. President, you're right, because you now own the Republican Party. The Republican Party is fully owned and operated by one proprietor. His name is Donald J. Trump.
I need to point this out, but everybody who gets elected in the modern system we have becomes the owner of the party. In fact, that's how you get nominated. You get your delegates to fill the convention up. They nominate you. You control the party. That was true of all of his recent predecessors, and it's true of him. The only people who think it's notable to say that are those who think that somehow this president, who has adopted the conventional Republican agenda almost 100%, that the members of the party should be resisting him.
But
it's
I don't
nuts.
see how is tariffs, anti-immigration? I don't see that as orthodox Republican positions.
Those are about 2 exceptions out of. Where is he on taxes? He's right with him. Where is he on regulation? Same thing. Where is he on military buildup? Same thing. Where is he on guns? Same thing. Where is he on school prayer? Same thing. Where is he on abortion? He's with them.
Where is he on deficits?
Well, Juan, I said almost 100%.
Well, I'm just saying there are major items.
You have to think that the natural reaction to these people, for somebody who is finally willing to sign their bills after all these years when they've struggled to get them passed, that they should somehow be resisting. That's a Democrat's point of view. That doesn't make any sense in Republican land.
We've got to hit a break. Yep. Our friend Tom Bevan tweeted, so every Democratic senator in a competitive race who voted against Kavanaugh lost.
Yep.
Donnelly, Heitkamp, McCaskill, almost certainly Nelson. And the one who voted for Kavanaugh survived, Joe Manchin.
Good point.
All right, we've got some tight races, too close to call. Florida, Nevada, Arizona, Montana.
We're going to visit those when we come back. Stay with us. Standing by at Rosendale headquarters tonight in Helena, Montana. Hi, Elson.
Hey, good evening to both of you guys. So we've spoken with Tester's team tonight as well as Rosendale's, and heading into this evening, both have said that they feel pretty good about tonight. Tester's team says that they feel like they've had a lot of enthusiasm on their side. There are over 700,000 registered voters in the state of Montana. So far, the Secretary of State says they've counted about 115,000 of those. In many ways, this has been a national versus local race, a Tester versus Trump race. Republicans have focused on President Trump and more national issues. When you talk to Rosendale, he talks about how he believes that voters in Montana want to have someone in the Senate who will support President Trump's agenda. He says he's that guy. He's talked a lot about immigration, a lot about the tax cuts that this administration has passed, things that have been done on a national level. Tester has focused more on local issues. He's talked about public land use, health care, veterans issues, as well as corruption. In fact, he kind of stays away from really attacking President Trump. The president came to this state 4 different times for rallies. He hit Tester hard, particularly over the issue, the back and forth over that failed nomination for President Trump's VA Secretary nominee, Dr. Ronnie Jackson. Tester would only say that President Trump is always welcome in this state, and that is because Republicans, they want this to be a race about Tester versus Trump. Democrats do not, because President Trump is pretty popular in this state. His approval rating on average is about 50%. So tonight, whether the Democrats would like it to be or not, this, like a lot of other races, does seem to be in many ways somewhat of a referendum on President Trump. As we were out speaking to voters heading in and out of the polls, whether they liked President Trump or whether they disliked him, almost every single person told us that President Trump played at least some factor in their decision to show up and vote in this race. So we have met a few people who say they were Trump supporters, but they like Tester this time around. So Tester has been ahead in the polls for the most part, again on average by about 4%. But Rosendale's people, the folks in this room behind me, they feel good about tonight, and they feel like there's a potential here for this seat to flip and go from blue to red. Martha, Brett.
Allison, thank you very much.
All right, let's take a look at our decision desk, the camera we have up there. Let's see what they're doing.
What are they doing?
All right, there's some tabulation. Bill Salmon is adding some things up. Looks like there's not a lot of movement there.
A lot of excitement over Florida in that room.
They're not.
I can see it.
They're not moving quickly. All right, Shannon, it seems like we're getting close to a Florida call. You know the state of Florida very well.
I do. I am a 7th-generation Floridian. So listen, these races have been too close to call. As we look now to the Senate race, Rick Scott obviously could be a big player for the GOP if he makes it to the Senate. And as we talked about, if this trend continues and the Republicans actually build their majority there, it helps with one of the president's top priorities, one of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's top priorities, which has been getting all of these federal judges, including 2 on the Supreme Court bench, through and confirmed. Because
speaking of that, do you think if they pick up another, let's say, and it goes up to +4, maybe even +5? I mean, if you think Tester, you don't know, but +5, that's at 56.
Yeah.
You could push maybe a more conservative judge on that list through a 56 control?
It makes a difference because you think this time even there were worries about Senators Mccaskill and Collins because both of them have expressed pro-choice positions. They were very worried about where now Justice Brett Kavanaugh was on that issue. There's been talk about Judge Amy Coney Barrett possibly being in the pipeline. She has been viewed as somebody who's very conservative with pro-life potentially leanings. And so if you take out a couple of Republican senators and still have another 3 or 4 as a buffer, it does give the Republicans other options when it comes to this. And remember, we've got 2 Supreme Court justices in their 80s now, Justice Ginsburg, 85, Justice Breyer, 80. And so we're always looking to see if anybody's ready to retire. You can't imagine they'd want to do it under a President Trump, but you never know.
Carl, let's take a look at Montana. Anything that you're writing down on that, scribbling on that pad over there have to do with
no,
what's going on
I'm
there?
not. I'm scribbling down things about Florida and others. But one thing to remember about this state is at the same time that they were voting for Donald Trump by 22 points, they were re-electing their governor, Steve Bullock, a Democrat. This is a state
also talked about as a potential.
He's one of the 24 prospective Democratic nominees. And this is emblematic of the trouble with trying to win in this state against an incumbent because they are independent-minded people, fully capable and like to split their ballot, unlike a lot of other states where, you know, things sort of tend to move one way or the other. Republicans tend to win versus Democrats tend to win. But this is a state where they're happy splitting their ballot, and they're going to elect a Republican legislature tonight. And right now, Tester's ahead by approaching 10 points.
Dana?
Well, thinking about Montana, you know, there's something about like Jon Tester. He did not try like the other Senate Democrats. This actually, I don't know if this is going to bear out, but let me just try this theory. A lot of the other Senate Democrats that were running for re-election, so let's look at Donnelly, for example, in Indiana. He tried very hard to make it the case that he was that he was willing to work with President Trump. He voted with President Trump on several occasions. It turned out that he lost. Jon Tester actually never really did that until sort of like the last 2 weeks of the campaign and didn't really go too hard at it. And he was just himself. They're quite independent-minded up there in Montana. There's also, and I don't know how this worked out, there was a libertarian candidate up there that dropped out and put the support behind, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, the Republican.
Yes. Right.
But that might not have worked out. Of course, there's only 19% in at the moment.
You know, the other thing that's happening in Montana is a ballot initiative, 185, and we haven't talked about those, but those are also important all around the country. Ballot initiative 185 increases taxes on tobacco products to make the Medicaid expansion in Montana permanent. And you talk about health care being an issue. In Montana, it is actually on the ballot, whether to tax and to fund the Medicaid expansion. So Tester has talked a lot about that in this race, and obviously coincides with this ballot initiative.
Yeah, Brett, in that vein on ballot issues, I'm just seeing that in West Virginia, Amendment number 1 passed, which removes the ability of the state of West Virginia to use federal funds to pay for abortions, which the Supreme Court has already ruled the states can do. So that's a very significant pro-life victory in the state of West Virginia on a ballot issue.
I mean, a lot of these ballot initiatives, there's a number of them in states for marijuana, recreational, and also medical marijuana, but some interesting ones that we'll vet out in the next couple of days.
Well, another one was in Florida, the Amendment 4, which was to restore voting rights to felons who have served their time,
Did that pass?
paid their debt to their society. It passed.
It required a 60% affirmative vote to pass, which puts Florida in the category of 37 other states. This is a shocker that permit convicted felons to vote automatically as soon as they get out of jail.
The campaign for it, you know, said they've paid their debt to society.
Yes.
Now let them vote.
Yes,
right.
but there was a time when the rule was the other way around. You were a convicted felon.
This is a part of the criminal justice reform movement, and
Yes.
Florida is a good example of it.
Yes.
I would like to get a vote from the decision desk on Florida, but we're going to get them and pull Starwald out again.
They're waiting for 101%.
There they are
of the
again.
vote to be in.
Any other movement? No. We'll take a break.
Chris is missing. Maybe he's headed here.
Wait, maybe Chris is he's missing. Let's see if we can get him after the break. America's Election Headquarters rolls on.
You can make them do a kiss game.
All right, we are back. Let's get a look at the big picture at this point at 11:34 on the East Coast. Republicans retain Senate control. Still to be determined what the final number will be there. And the House is going to now be in Democrats' control. And we still wait for the final numbers there as well to see exactly how big those margins are going to be. But we're waiting for some very big Senate races to come in still, especially in Florida this evening. And we'll see what the number is. At this point, it's 51 plus 3 for Republicans, which is pretty much what was expected in the early going. It looked for a while like it might be a narrower margin than that, but that was the number that was tossed around in the early going.
Democrats were definitely hoping for something different than this. Carly Shimkus is live outside Fox Square. We've heard people out there all night.
Yeah, there they are.
Yes, that is right. We are still rocking and rolling out here on Fox Square. Are you guys having a good time? All right, everybody's having a blast. You know, I've been talking talking to a lot of people in the crowd, and I've noticed that there are some patriotic folks here. This is Johnny. Johnny's from Wisconsin. Check out that shirt. A lot of patriotism shown there. So with a shirt like that, I have to ask you, what is your favorite thing about America?
Well, I'd have to say our inherent freedom, right? It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from, race, religion, culture, or what side of the aisle. You have the ability to prosper and live in the freedom that we have. You know, my grandfather started a small business here. My father now runs it, and it gave my brother, my sister, and I all the opportunity we have. With the results that happened today and what's been going on the last couple of years, I hope we can continue to stay down this path so that my son can see the same, you know, freedom and prosperity.
To that, so some optimism as well. I like that answer. Now, this is Justin. Justin's from Texas. Some big news just made out of Texas. Ted Cruz was up against a heavy hitter. Are you surprised by his projected victory?
So I wouldn't say surprised. I would say relieved. I know it was a hard-fought battle in Texas. Beto O'Rourke's had some good push, but there are so many issues on the table this year that it was so important for Cruz to pull through. And so I was glad that he ended up pulling that one out.
And what are some of the issues that got you to the polls?
Sure. So immigration was huge this year. The economy, the way that the Senate handled Kavanaugh's confirmation just really frustrated me, so it really drove me to the polls.
All right, and I got to show you really quickly, we have a Fox Square mascot out here. This guy, look at how cute he is. You know, I would ask him if he voted, but it looks like he's had a rough day.
We did. One paw on the ballot.
All right, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Wow. That is a small horse.
When in doubt, we are going back to the dog.
Totally.
Absolutely.
I mean, if Dana could bring out Jasper here, we'd be fine.
Maybe we could stick that dog on the decision desk.
Yes,
Like a mini
that's a
horse
great
out there.
idea. Britt said, sick the dog on the decision desk and get a decision on Florida.
I like it.
All right.
Dana could ride the dog over to the decision desk.
And I will bring you back a decision.
Okay, we're moving on. The person who could be the House Speaker is speaking right now in Washington, D.C. Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Listen in.
Today is more than about Democrats and Republicans. It's about restoring the Constitution's checks and balances to the Trump administration. It's about stopping the GOP and Mitch McConnell's assaults on Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and the health care of 130 million Americans living with pre-existing medical conditions. Let's hear it more for pre-existing medical conditions. It's about ending wealthy special interest free reign over Washington, but more than anything, it's about what a new Democratic majority will mean in the lives of hardworking Americans. That's what it's about. Democrats pledge a Congress that works for the people. For the people. Lower the cost of health care by lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Raise workers' wages with strong economic growth by rebuilding the infrastructure of America. Clean up corruption to make Washington work for all Americans. We will take real, very, very strong legislative action to negotiate down the price control of prescription drugs that is burdening seniors and families across America. We will deliver a transformational investment in America's infrastructure to create more good-paying jobs, rebuilding our roads, bridges, schools, water systems, broadband networks, and schools and housing and beyond. We will drain the swamp of dark interest money in our elections. Because when we do, Americans have greater confidence in everything their Congress works on, from health care to taxes to guns to clean air and clean water for our children, when they know that the people's interest will prevail, not the dark special interest. In stark contrast to the GOP Congress, the Democratic Congress will be led with transparency and openness, so that the public can see what's happening and how it affects them, and that they can weigh in with the members of Congress and with the President of the United States. We will have accountability, and we will strive for bipartisanship with fairness on all sides. We will have a responsibility to find our common ground where we can, stand our ground where we can't, but we must try. We have a bipartisan marketplace of ideas that makes our democracy strong. A Democratic Congress will work for solutions that bring us together, because we have all had enough of division. The American people want peace. They want results. They want us to work for positive results for their lives. Our founders believed in a principle that they knew must guide our nation. First, in our Declaration, they promised life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But they gave us guidance, e pluribus unum, from any one. The founders could never have imagined how vast our country would become, how many we would be, how different we would be from each other. But they knew we had to be one. Unity. Unity for our country. And that today the American people have spoken to restore that vision. With this new Democratic majority, we will honor the vision of our founders for a country having a legitimate debate, but remembering that we are one country. We'll honor the sacrifices of our men and women in uniform and their families who have made us the land of the free and the home of the brave. To build a better future worthy of their sacrifice. And we must honor and respect the aspirations of our children. Elections are about the future and what we do for our children's future. So thank you all for making the future better for all of America's children. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you all very much.
Now, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi could be House Speaker, depending on how Democrats vote, with Democrats taking control, projected to take control of the U.S. House of Representatives, talking about the way forward. And the real question is what that looks like, and whether it looks like it's a negotiating stance with Donald Trump, or whether it is right at him, investigation after investigation.
She said people want things to get done and that it's time to unify the country. So we'll see if that sentiment carries forward.
We have a couple races that we want to update you on. First of all, Connecticut Governor. This is a big race in which the Republican, Bob Stefanowski, has the lead over Democrat Ned Lamont. It was supposed to be the other way with polls heading in. Lamont, you may remember, defeated Senator Lieberman, Joe Lieberman, for a Senate primary, but then lost to Lieberman as an independent. Stefanowski, a businessman who says he wants to change Connecticut and taxes in particular. We'll take a look at this 47% vote preference in. We've got a couple House races to update too. And
do we have Josh Hawley on stage now? Do we want to take a quick, let's go there for a moment.
Well, tonight, the good Lord and the people of Missouri have given us the victory. We won. I just had a nice phone call from Senator Mccaskill. She couldn't have been more gracious. She conceded the race. I want to thank her for her service. And I had a very nice call with the President of the United States. Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. Thank you for believing in Missouri. Tonight, the people of Missouri have delivered. What the people of Missouri said tonight is that they want a senator who actually stands with the people of Missouri, who represents our values, who represents our voice, and will fight for us in Washington, D.C., and I will. You know, I have to say this, though, as I travel around the state, we've heard a lot about how divided the country is and how divided the state is. And I just have to say, as Aaron and I have been all over this state, I don't know that that's really true, because as we've gone from every corner of this state, from the boot heel to southwest Missouri to northwest to central Missouri, we have found a place that is a people that are incredibly united in the things that we hold most dear. This election has been about our way of life. It's been about the heartland way of life. It's been about the way of life that built this country, the way of life that sustains this state, a way of life built around our churches and our faith, our families, our neighborhoods, and our schools. And I said from the very beginning that this was about defending our way of life. It was about renewing it for a new day. And tonight, the people of Missouri said, we believe in that way of life. We believe it's not the past, it's the future. It doesn't represent something that has gone forever. It represents the best of America. And tonight, the people of Missouri have said that our way of life and our values are going to renew this country, and that is what we are about. And that is what we are for, and that's what this race has been for. You know, now it is time to roll up our sleeves and to get to work. The hard work begins of going to Washington and standing up for our values. I said that I would fight to secure our border, and I will. I've said that I will be an advocate and fight for pro-Constitution, pro-America judges on our courts, and I will. I said I would fight to continue to bring back jobs from overseas, to get wages growing, and I will. I said that I will always stand for our farmers and our small businessmen, the people who have built this state, and I will. You know, throughout this campaign, I've thought many times of a line that Prime Minister Winston Churchill said during the Second World War. He said, "Why is it that we think of history as something that's in the past and forget that we are making it?" Well, we stand tonight at a critical moment in our history. We stand at this hour at a critical moment in our nation's history. Tonight, the people of Missouri have said, we're up to the challenge. Tonight, the people of Missouri have said, we're ready to answer the call in this hour. Tonight, the people of Missouri have said, we believe in America. We believe that our best days are ahead. We believe in our future, and we are ready to fight for it. And I am ready to go to Washington and fight for you.
Okay, let's head down to Florida, and there is Rick Scott talking to his crowd. Let's see.
Thank you. It's hard to, I mean, if you just stop and think about it, from what we started a little over 8 years and 7 months ago, it's just hard to believe we're here tonight. Now that this campaign is behind us, that's where we're going to leave it. At least the campaigns I've been involved in are divisive, and they're tough. And they're really actually way too nasty. But you know what? We've done this for over 200 years, and after these campaigns, we come together. And that's what we're going to do. Americans come together. So, thank you to all of you, because everybody in this room has been a part of it. But the first person I want to thank is my lovely wife, Ann. You know, we've been together since we were 19 years old, and I put her through a lot of things. So the last 8 years has been a lot. As you all know, when Hurricane Michael hit, a young lady did not have an interest in giving campaign speeches. When I decided to run in 2010 because she was afraid of public speakings, I asked her if she would go on the campaign trail, and she did. I want to thank our daughters, Allison and Jordan, and their families, and you know, I love my family. I love my family with all my heart, and I love every family in this state. And my goal is to make this a better place for every family in this state, every family. There are a couple people looking down from heaven I want to recognize. I had the most wonderful mom. When I was born, my mom was a single mom, and she ultimately raised 5 kids in a very tough environment with no money. She never would believe that I'd be a governor or a U.S. senator. I guess she believed it, didn't know. The second person you saw in the video a second ago is Jerry Busamanti. For everybody in our office and everybody on this campaign team, she was our best friend. And she unfortunately died the day before the campaign started. And pienso en Jerry todos los días y espero que esté orgulloso de mi español. Su familia está aquí esta noche y quiero agradecerles por haber creado una mujer tan maravillosa y me alegro haber tenido la oportunidad de conocerla. Nunca la olvidaré.
Rick Scott, very excited, obviously, as he will now be a senator, from the state of Florida. He was the governor there, term limited, and now will go to Washington to serve his state as the governor, as he has beaten Bill Nelson, longtime incumbent there. And we have another winner who is about to speak.
Florida Governor-elect Ron Desantis joins us live. Governor-elect, are you used to that term yet?
Not yet. I mean, we worked really hard. We ran through the tape. We felt good about it. But, you guys know Florida's always competitive. And so we're real fortunate we won. And tomorrow we start running in the transition. So we're not going to be able to rest very, very much here.
How do you think you did it?
Look, I think it was a lot of hard work. I mean, we turned out, I don't know the final vote total, but I think I got 1 million more votes than Governor Scott did when he got reelected in 2014. I mean, we really energized a lot of voters, and I thought if we could energize Republican voters and make the case in a convincing way that I'd be a governor, better governor to independent voters, that we would win, and I think that's what we did.
So, Governor-elect, it's Martha McCallum here. In terms of the support that you got from the president, a lot of people thought that your opponent in the primary was somebody that a lot of folks in Florida could get behind. But obviously, the president was right about picking you.
Yeah, look, I mean, the thing about the president is, he got behind me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do. All the pundits said that I was the underdog and this or that. And obviously we had to win the race. I mean, you guys moderated a debate between us, which was widely watched by our primary electorate and really helped my poll numbers take off. But it was obviously significant. And he did do a rally at the end of July. And once he did that rally, I mean, we had amassed so much support that we knew that we were going to win the primary. And I will have to look at the numbers, but I bet you, if you looked at this Southwest Florida turnout, because he did do the rally there last week, and then the Panhandle turnout, I think that was presidential level turnout, and I think the president had a big role in generating that. Democrats spent a lot of money, had a lot of high-profile visitors come in to campaign for Mayor Gillum, including the former President Obama and others. What is your reaction to tonight overall, with the Democrats taking control of the House, the Senate staying with Republicans, and it looks like a split, really, in governors around the country? Well, look, in Florida, I think, we never bought into the idea that there was this blue wave that we couldn't counteract. We knew the Democrats were energized, but we knew our voters would be energized if we gave them a reason to do it, so we did that. But, in my race in particular, I mean, I had huge odds against me because not only did I have the major money from out of state, I mean, they must have sent tens of millions of dollars from out of state coming in against me. I also, quite frankly, had almost 90% of the national media aligned with my opponent, puffing him up. up, and really some of them attacking me in ways that I thought was patently unjust. So we had to face a lot of headwinds in this race, and I just think that the voters of Florida, I mentioned in my victory speech, you know, the pundits kind of rule for, you know, almost 2 years, except that one Tuesday in November where the people get to speak. It doesn't matter what the pundits say. It doesn't matter what the media says. They don't get to set the agenda. The people of the state of Florida had an opportunity to set the agenda, and they responded to our message.
Former Congressman, now Governor-elect of the state of Florida, Ron Desantis, congratulations. Thanks for being with us.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more results.
We now have a race call to make officially in Florida. And you just saw the basically victory speech from Rick Scott, but we are officially making that call. Fox News projecting that Rick Scott will beat Bill Nelson in the Senate race in Florida. That is another pickup for Republicans. That means they are +4 at this point, 52 to 44, with some races still out there. +4, they were at 51-49. You start the night. We have a race call to make in Oregon, the governor's contest there. The decision desk can now project the Democratic governor, Kate Brown, will win re-election by defeating Republican Newt Bueller, a state lawmaker. Also, we have a race call to make in South Dakota. The governor's race, Republican Congresswoman Kristi Noem will defeat Democratic State Senator Billy Sutton to succeed the term-limited Republican governor, Dennis Daugaard. We've got the panel with us. Mo Elleithee is joining us on the panel. Mo, your thoughts. You heard Nancy Pelosi. Apparently, we're reporting that the president has called Nancy Pelosi. We don't have any guidance on what that conversation was. But your thoughts on the night overall?
Look, I think both parties are going to be able to have something to point to and say it was a good night for us. Republicans picking up a few seats in the Senate, padding their margin there, is something that they can take pride in. But when you look at the overall landscape, I think Democrats probably have a little bit more to be happy about tonight. They've retaken the House, and probably by a bigger majority than a lot of people thought they would. They will have a net gain, it looks like, in governor's races. Lost a couple of big ones that they were hoping for, but those Ohio, Florida, but those are Republican holds. Looks like they're going to actually pick up a number of seats and shrink the Republican majority in governors. They've flipped about 4 state legislative chambers that, as far as I can tell so far, Colorado Senate is now Democrat, New York State Senate is now Democrat, both houses in New Hampshire are now Democratic. So there's a lot for both parties to point to and feel good. But I'd rather be at the DNC than the RNC tonight. Really? Yeah.
I mean, because the way forward legislatively is what?
Well, look, the House is now going to have the oversight it was looking for, that Democrats were looking for in the House. That's going to be important for them. Nancy Pelosi today began to signal some areas where she thought she might be able to work with the president, and I think that's going to be important. But what we're seeing out in the states is what's really interesting to me. Electorally, what we've seen in these House races is that the suburbs continue to be fertile ground for Democrats. It's important territory for Democrats electorally. Now, they need to figure out how to translate some of those suburban wins into statewide wins in some of the key states. But the Republicans have a real suburban problem, just as Democrats have one in rural areas, and that's significant. And what we're seeing now with these governor's races and these state legislative races, I think you are going to see redistricting, which takes place after the 2020 election, suddenly become a lot more balanced and a lot more competitive in a number of states. That, I think, might be able to help. If we can get better lines drawn in some of these districts, we might have some better politics coming out of them.
Judge?
I'm concerned about the staunch liberal leadership of these committees. Maxine Waters will be the chairperson of the House Banking Committee. Can you imagine the interrogations of the CEOs of the principal banks in the United States and the frequency with which they will be compelled to answer her questions? Jerry Nadler has already said he wants to commence 2 we've talked about this earlier, impeachment investigations, which is absurd without a groundswell of belief that the people he wants to impeach are unworthy of office, and there is no such groundswell, but he apparently is going to do it anyway. I wish the Democrats would listen to Ed Rendell and legislate rather than investigate, but I fear these investigations by some of them will be aimed to weaken the president and preoccupy his time. And I think the Democrats, if they do that, will pay for it dearly in 2020.
Dana, I mean, that's the question. I mean, Democrats have a decision to make now in terms of where they want to put their energy and whether or not going down the road of investigation is something that will reflect well on them when they try to run a candidate in 2020.
Well, it might not reflect well on them, here, but to their base, it will reflect very well on them. And I just think back to 2006. Carl and I were both at the White House at the time, and immediately, life changes. And we doubled the size of our counsel's office in a couple of months. The investigations were fast and furious, especially they all wanted to come after Carl. Subpoenas, there were fights, every morning there was another, make sure you preserve documents, a document request, and it really does become a grind. Now, it does give something for President Trump to fight against. And that can be helpful to him going forward. If it looks like the Democrats are just doing investigations because they can't do anything else, because they can't legislate, they can't come to the table and deal with things the American people care about, that'll be a problem for them.
I said earlier, we may see an exodus of some cabinet members, maybe faster, with Democratic control of the House. Carl?
Democrats have taken control tonight, and they're whooping it up. But let's be clear, both parties are broken, and the Democrats in the House are broken. We now have 11 incumbent Democrats who are coming back who have previously said not voting for Pelosi. 5 Democrats whom we've called for House races tonight who said they will not support Pelosi, and 10 Democrat challengers leading in their races right now. That's a total of 26 Democrats who said they won't support Nancy Pelosi. They're going to have a leadership fight. They've also got a problem in that we mentioned all these committee chairs. There are no term limits inside the Democratic caucus. Right today, there's not a single chairman on the House side among the Republicans who's older than the ranking Democrat member. So we're going to see attention from these longtime senior members of the Democrats who now become chairman as a result of seniority, and the young and up-and-comers and new faces in the Democratic Party who are going to say, do I really want the guy, Jerry Nadler, to be in charge of the Judiciary Committee after he's been here for, since Abraham Lincoln was elected president? I mean, there's going to be some tension there between the oldsters and the youngsters.
Yeah, but don't underestimate Nancy Pelosi's shrewdness when it comes to this, because I think she knows this, and I think she sees this, and I think you will see a lot of deals get cut within the Democratic caucus to give some of the fresh new faces a bigger voice, a bigger role within the House caucus. I think you will see new leadership positions opening up with some of the newer members coming in. So I think you're gonna see some sort of a deal work itself out where Pelosi will be the speaker, I think more likely than not, but some of the newer voices will have an increased voice.
But she was also a speaker, though, when Henry Waxman was the chairperson, and maybe she looks back and thinks, oh, we overstepped. You see articles about that, and the Washington Post even interviewed Henry Waxman saying, what should the Democrats avoid doing? He said, well, they don't want to do, they want to go too far, too fast. They got to take things easy. Well, that is not what they did in 2007 and 2008. Maybe they learned a lesson.
If Henry Waxman was a model of restraint, I don't want to see this crowd elected. But one other thing is you're right. She's powerful. She's strong. And she may become speaker, but she will do so by making a number of Democrats who are on the record saying, I will never vote for her. She'll break them. And the first vote that they will cast in the new Congress is a vote that they promised every one of their constituents in their Republican-leaning districts back home. I will never do.
Think about Congresswoman Susanna Martinez last time around saying it is time for us to have some fresher, newer leadership. Now, these are not 20, 30-year-olds who are saying this. I mean, as we've said, the ages of a lot of these potential committee chairmen and chairwomen and the leadership, they're well into their 70s and pushing into the 80s. And so there are, like you said, Carl, a lot of younger, more up-and-coming Democrats who are, worried that they're never really going to get their shot. And they were a lot more vocal the last time around about raising their hands, about naming names, that kind of thing. And we talk about the fact that Jerry Nadler, as Judge, you and I talked about during the commercial, the fact that he seems intent on pushing ahead with this idea of impeachment. Yes, it may do well in the Judiciary Committee, but Mo, I know you think that Speaker Pelosi, if she's in charge, is not going to go for that.
That's right.
Because even if you get through the committee, and you'd have to get a majority of the House, but then 2/3 in the Senate, are they really going to expend all of that time and energy to go forward?
And what the Judiciary Committee does will have to be defended or explained or addressed by every single Democrat. Every one of the lunatic actions of some of these chairmen are going to have to be explained by people who are getting elected from purple or red districts tonight.
So Congressman Clyburn, who's a major player in the Black Caucus, just told our intrepid, he must work 20 hours a day, colleague Chad Pergram, that he fully expects Mrs. Pelosi to be elected Speaker.
You know, there's also going to be a battle for the leadership in the Republican minority. And Kevin McCarthy, everybody had thought, well, if they were to hold on, he would be the Speaker. And there'd been talk, well, maybe the number 2 guy with Paul Ryan retiring Steve Scalise, the whip, maybe he might challenge him. But I would think that with their loss, that's completely up for grabs. And one of the names that's been mentioned as a possible House minority leader, Republican leader, is Jim Jordan of Ohio running. And you talk about the left wing of the Democratic caucus taking over the Democrats in the House. You could have the right wing of the Republican caucus taking over the House. So there are going to be battles for power on both sides in the House.
Let's take a look at a race call that we can now make in the Iowa governor's contest. The Fox News decision desk says we can project that Republican Governor Kim Reynolds will win re-election by defeating Democratic lawyer Fred Hubbell. Reynolds became the governor last year when Terry Branstad vacated that post to become the ambassador to China. He, of course, was very helpful to President Trump in the state of Iowa, and now she will take that rightful place as governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds. So that's another Republican governor in a very important presidential state.
Think about that. Governor races tonight. Republicans pick up Florida, Ohio, New Hampshire, and Iowa. What's the common denominator there? All of those states are crucial to 2020. And when you have the machine of the governor's office, you have leverage, you have power. So those are big states that I think Democrats, at least 3 out of the 4, really thought they had a chance at. Let's take a look at some of the key Senate races Republicans have picked up tonight. You have Florida, Indiana, Missouri, and North Dakota. There's Indiana, and there is North Dakota, Indiana right there, Mike Braun, who we heard from earlier. And it's still too close to call in a couple of races. Nevada, too close to call. This is Dean Heller, who's the incumbent Republican. And that is where Dan Springer is, live from Las Vegas at Dean Heller's headquarters. What's the word on the ground, Dan?
Yeah, hey, Brett, I wish I could give you some numbers, but we don't have anything yet because there are still people in line in Washoe County who are voting. The polls closed, the doors closed over 2 hours ago, and by state law, they have to allow all the people who are inside the polling places to vote before they can release any results. So we don't have a single person, a single vote total yet from outside of Nevada, but we did get a little peek into how the out county, the rural counties are voting so far. They did release Elko County, which is one of those rural counties in Nevada, and that went 78% for Dean Heller, the Republican who's trying to win re-election in a state that Hillary Clinton won 2 years ago. And Dean Heller came on the stage a short time ago and he said, do you think we would have had 78% without Donald Trump's visit to Elko County? Just a short time, about a week ago, he was out there. So he thanked the president for coming out here 5 different times during the election cycle. But Dean Heller's in for a real tough race tonight. He's going up against Jackie Rosen. She's a Democrat in her first term in Congress, and she ran a good race. It's going to be tough. Democrats have a 5% registration advantage in this state, so they have been trending in winning big elections when there's big turnout. And there was a big turnout today. We're looking at probably record set for midterm elections. But right now, we have no results. We'll be here throughout the night. We expect a long one. Brett?
Okay, Dan Springer live in Las Vegas. We'll head back as we get those numbers, those polls close. We've got a number of races still out there. Think about the Wisconsin governor's race. You've got
big one.
You've got that with Scott Walker trying to hold off Tony Evers, the Democrat, and that is very close. We haven't been able to call that. A number of different races that are still out there, and we also have Beto O'Rourke, who is in Texas, speaking to his crowd. Who knows what the future is for Beto O'Rourke? You got to do something with all those hats. And he says he's not running in 2020, but that was when he thought he was going to win the U.S. Senate in Texas. Ted Cruz winning that seat. We'll be right back. Election headquarters, you want a tight race? Here's one, Wisconsin. This was not expected to be like this, looking at the early numbers, but look at this. You have Tony Evers up. No, now Scott Walker is up 300. 314. 6-7, carry the knot. Yes, Scott Walker up 314 votes. He is fighting for his political life as the incumbent governor. He's faced 3 elections. Remember, he faced the original election, then he had a recall election, and now this election. And he was pretty much, considered dead for a long time by a lot of experts. And now Scott Walker is up 314 votes. I'm going to get to the panel in a second, but I want to check in with Matt Finn. He's in Waukesha at the Walker headquarters. Matt, what's the word?
Brett, hundreds of supporters in this packed house in a suburb of Milwaukee where Governor Walker does well. And earlier in the night, the mood here seemed to calm down as the returns show Governor Walker trailing. But now, as you just pointed out, this race is neck and neck with Walker and Evers at about 1.1 million votes each. Governor Scott Walker in the fight of his political life, seeking a rare third term here in Wisconsin. And heading into tonight, Governor Walker's told me here on the ground that he considered this the tightest race of his life. And as we know, he ran for president in 2016, and he's now seeking a third term here. But he says he considered this the tightest race. And, there were many polls who suggest just that Evers and Walker were in a dead heat. And right now, as we inch closer towards midnight, people here are not going home. They are cheering every time the numbers come up and show Governor Walker with a slight lead. And then they go a little quiet as Evers pulls ahead. So we will continue to keep our eye on this race, which is just in a dead heat right now, Brett.
All right, Matt Finn in Waukesha. Right now, Walker up 2,000. Karl Rove, Walker people are feeling good?
Yeah, they're feeling good. They've got votes out in Green Bay. They've got votes out in the Fox River Valley. They've got votes out in the northwest corner of the state, precincts here and there. On the other hand, Milwaukee is almost all in, and Dane County, which is Madison, the most liberal county in the state, is almost all in. So their model says they think they're going to prevail. The one advantage of having been challenged 3 times is you either have a good political apparatus with an incredibly good get-out-the-vote machine, or you don't. Remember, he's actually put it to work 4 times. He put it to work in the 2016 presidential election. This was the first surprise of the night, the first brick in the blue wall to fall, and it fell because of the joint effort of Paul Ryan and Scott Walker in this political machine they built, based in the Southwest, actually the southeastern part of the state, but it is a machine, and tonight we're seeing the results of it in an election which he's been challenged by the state education commissioner and by the unions, and they wanted to extract their revenge, and they may not get it.
By the way, the Republican Steele won Paul Ryan's district. Right. Wisconsin won. Look who's joining us. It's Chris Stirewalt.
We got some questions. Yeah, we got some questions for you.
Now, I don't want y'all complaining to me about races not being called if you actually take me out of the room where we're calling races to come talk to you.
That's true.
We want answers.
Okay.
But talk to us about the Walker race, because, early indications were that he was in big trouble.
He was. I think one thing that people forget, races change. Things happen. These are not static events. We didn't draw water out at the beginning and hold it back and are only now pouring it. These races have changed. Walker has very clearly closed here. And I think to Carl's point, something that's underappreciated, the effectiveness of this Walker machine that he built with Paul Ryan, that the two of them together remade Wisconsin politics. Not only did he deliver a Republican Senate seat up there,
for Ron Johnson, but also for Trump in 2016. That was a shockingly narrow, but still a win in Wisconsin, and Scott Walker and his operation have a lot to do with that.
What else we got out there? Georgia governor.
Georgia governor race. Now, we would remember their recall runoff is a serious consideration. Right now, you see Brian Kemp is over the threshold so that he wouldn't have to have a recall or a walker on my mind. He wouldn't have to have a runoff. And in that case, you'd have a clear call and you'd have the seat gone. But there's still enough vote out that it's too soon to say.
Jonathan Serra is down there in Georgia and has kind of an update on the ground. What are you hearing, Jonathan?
Hey, Brett, right now I'm at a hotel in downtown Atlanta where Stacey Abrams is watching the returns. Her fans out here, her fans and supporters awaiting her arrival. But again, this race still too close to call. Meanwhile, Brian Kemp, we have a live shot from his watch party. This in Athens, Georgia, about an hour drive to the northeast of Atlanta. Obviously, both candidates hoping for a decisive win. And for much of the night, Brian Kemp was leading Stacey Abrams by a comfortable margin. But again, this was because the rural Georgia counties were the first to report. This is where Kemp is doing especially well, running a candidacy appealing to social conservatives in rural parts of the state. But now that precincts are reporting from metro Atlanta, parts of the city which are favoring Democrats, the margin is narrowing. It's unclear whether Stacey Abrams would be able to pull off an outright victory, but her supporters are hoping at the very least that they will be able to force this race into a runoff. Under Georgia law, a candidate must get more than 50% of the vote in order to win the election outright, but if that doesn't happen, this race would go to a December 4 runoff, continuing what has been a very contentious and sometimes bitter campaign. Back to you.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you. By the way, right now, the Democrats on the House race are plus 26. They needed 23 to control. We called it early. Chris, we talked earlier about why we called it early. There were people in California tweeting me saying, why is Chris Darwell doing this? And I told him it was not just you. But
I just, I wanted
to lead the group.
Yeah.
By the way, let's see the decision desk while he's not there.
What are they doing?
Are they forlorn? Are they upset?
They're taking
very serious.
They're
eating your snack.
They're taking my bit of honeys that Dana Perino gave me. That's what.
They're eating your snack.
That's what they're doing.
It's about the same.
Well, this is of course the part in every night where you got the ones that are left are the hard ones, right? The ones that are left where you can't rely just on the difference engine to spit out the answer. You really have to know the counties. You have to know the stuff. Unfortunately, we have this fantastic team. But on that House call, we're going to be. I think what is best and most interesting about all of this is we're going to end up right on the House, probably pretty close to where a lot of folks thought we were going to be the whole time. So the forecast was over 30 essentially for Democrats in the House, and it's lining up. We've seen some amazing wins for Democrats in the House. Oklahoma 5, give me a break. Like, that wasn't even on the list.
Pete Sessions went down.
Pete Sessions went down. And the farther west that we've gone, and this is really a story about the future of the Democratic Party, which is younger voters, Hispanic voters in a changing part of the country. If they can do it out there and they can change races out in that part of the country, and we're just now counting in California, right? We're just now counting those races in Southern California. There are races in Washington State that will also change this composition. And I would just say I'm so pleased with the way that it worked. I'm so pleased with the way the machine worked. And Arnon Mishkin, our whole polling team, deserves such credit for it. I'm just pleased.
And that's why you're giving them your candy.
Well, they can't have the bit of honey. They can have anything else, but not the bit of honey. The bit of honey is too good.
Is here as well. I want to get your thoughts on the Democrats. Some of these are from suburban Republican districts. It's hard to see how those folks go left, kind of where the power of the Democratic Party is on the progressive side. So how do you see it?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is we really do have a suburban-rural divide here in this country, or rather, even an urban-rural divide in this country. It's becoming more clear on nights like tonight, where we're seeing a lot of Democrats who have picked up seats in some of these Republican-held long time, in some cases, like Pete Sessions we were just talking about, long-time Republican-held seats that are in suburban/urban areas. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think we also learned tonight that Florida is always going to be a giant mystery. I think I called it the land of TBD on Twitter a while ago, because you just, you know, the polling always seems to be off. And by the way, I think pollsters, we're learning tonight there's a lot of work to do in terms of actually determining, you know, what's going to happen. A lot of polling was off, especially in some of these Senate races. Republicans had a good night. That's not a knock on your team, no, by any stretch. But I think pollsters and analytics teams still have a lot of work to do to try to figure out how they can accurately look at some of these districts, especially going into 2020.
There was a poll for Gillum, like +10 or something, more than that.
In Indiana,
the past few days.
Donnelly.
Well, if I can speak to that, we have a serious problem, which is that as local news outlets dry up and they have smaller budgets and there are fewer of them, we don't get as many reliable state-level public polls as we used to. 4 years ago and 8 years ago, newspapers, television stations would pay big money to do good polls in these states. Now the polls that you get are very often junk, right? There are a bunch of stuff that don't meet methodological standards. There may be a number of them, but we were flying blind basically in Montana, flying blind in West Virginia. We had a couple polls. You couldn't even really make an average out of the decent polls, and that's going to continue to be a problem. It bit us in 2016 in Wisconsin, and it will continue to deal with it until we find a way to do this.
You know, there's so many people that are, you know, looking at these models, right?